Well, ho, 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 you unfestive swines. What did you all want when I said what kind of top 10 list would you like to see? You wanted to see a list, didn't you? You wanted to see what I was disappointed with, what got me grumpy in 2024. So, here it is. The Guy Kestivan, the Testaman, quietly disappointed about what you've done list for 2024. Now, obviously, it's me. I've got a list in front, written on a handy discarded cardboard box, if you want to set the scene. But yeah, I haven't got a script, so this could go anywhere. But first, I need to say, click the subscribe button, because if I'm going to be grumpy about something, it's the fact that so many of you watch this channel without subscribing. So, there you go, there's number 11. Get your fingers out of your mince pies or wherever else you're sticking them when you're bored and press them on that subscribe button, and then the channel will grow even more. It's been a great year for the channel. Let's not beat around the bush. It's been a splendid year. My other work has had some ups and downs, which we'll get to in the whole industry thing, which is kind of rounds this out. But thanks to you guys watching the channel, supporting it, getting chatty in the comments, which is basically what I really like being into. Do you know what? Forgot to turn the ring light on, haven't I? Right, there we go. I'm not going to re-record the start again. You just have to live with it. Look at my lovely top. Got this off my daughter, Freya. So thanks, Freya, for supporting the channel, like you folks. And if you've really liked it and you've got some Christmas spending money left over, then please consider supporting me on Patreon, like these fine folks whose names are scrolling up now, because they really do make a massive difference in the sustainability. I'm getting more and more sponsors now, but those guys are literally the ones who mean it's worth me pressing go on that GoPro at least a couple of days a month. The rest of it makes no financial sense at all, really, yet. But if we keep pressing on, maybe we'll get enough of you idiots on here regularly that it'll start paying for itself. Or if not, I've learnt my lesson and we can all go and do our separate ways. Well, there you go. I'm completely off track immediately. But, so, let's get into it. First thing I want to say, my first ever sponsor on the channel was Crudcatcher. Pete Tompkins at Sensible Products said, he used to do it for racers and famouses back in the day on the magazines. If you got a cover shot with a Crudcatcher on, that, you got a really good cover bonus. And he was one of the very first people to come to me when I was started doing YouTube and went, I really like what you're doing, Kez. Will you run Crudcatcher on your bikes? And I'll give you a bit of money every year for doing it. And I was like, wow. Oh, it was a turning point for the channel, absolutely. I'm particularly Guy Martin today, and say, turning point, isn't it? Yeah, right, Ron Covey's Pete's a splendid bloke, but, surfer, amazing. But anyway, Pete came to me and said, run Crudcatcher. I was like, brilliant. I'm running them anyway because they're a really good full coverage guard. The O-rings on them mean you can snap them on and off loads of bikes. They're not Velcroed on or bolted on, which obviously I'm switching test bikes all the time. So I think something that can just twang on straight away. Brilliant. And because it's full coverage, I don't get shit in my GoPro lens. So absolutely marvellous in terms of being a really, really useful product. And they support the channel. So who better to surprise announce as because I haven't told Pete this is happening, as the title sponsor for this shit list for 2024 than Crud XL fenders. So there we go. But from there, let's get into that top 10. Top 10 starts with a 12. Nonsense, perhaps, but fortunately, it's the TRP Evo 12 group set. I haven't done the video. I did a fitting video, I think. But to be honest, I've been beating around the bush a bit because I've been trying to make it work all year. It's been on my specialised Epic Evo bike for, crikey, it must be 9 months now. Tried all sorts. I've tried different cassettes. I've tried different chains. I've tried every single different tension setting under the stars, and it's just not happening. I just can't. I mean, the shifter's fairly heavy, which isn't a bad thing. It's got that adjustable shifter on it. I mean, the clutch is good. It doesn't rattle around a lot. The chainring is still okay. Bottom bracket's getting a bit iffy, which I'm surprised with the chainring because normally they wear out pretty quickly because it's that wavy, thick. It's not a thick thin. It's a kind of left-right pattern on the chainrings, which practice used to use, and that tends to give out after a while. All of that's been fine, but just trying to get a clean run all the way through the cassette It just has never happened. And that shifting is the point where, it's really, really tough on your thumb. I'm getting thumb ache on longer rides with it. And I've given it to all sorts of people, really good mechanics, really ham-fisted mechanics, and no one has been able to make sense of it. And I've done a bit of digging around in the background. And while I know people who were mechanics on teams that ran, Evo 12 on trail bikes and then the Evo DH group set on race bikes. And apparently Evo DH group set, absolutely banging, no problem at all. As soon as you get into that bigger cassette, it's just not even as good as Shimano Qs. And when it's twice the price of Shimano XT and about the same price as SRAM GX wireless, sorry, it's an absolute no recommendation for me on that one. So, what else have we got? Oh, Mondraker Chrono DC. Mondraker, really excited about this bike. Look, taste, Mondraker, great handling always, geometry's always on point, they look superb. I really like their gravel bike. They did the Dusty, the electric gravel bike. I've always liked their XC bike, so I was like, brilliant. Lightweight, carbon hardtail, progressive geometry, Mondraker style. That's going to be right up my single track, that is. What do I get? Something with a parts pick that looks like it's been a bit of a COVID hangover. It's like got Fox fork with remote lockout. It's got flat bars, but then it's got Mavic Crossmax XL wheels in it. And to be fair, the Mavic Crossmax XLs aren't actually that heavy, but it's got Maxxis Ardent tyres on. I mean, who's still running Maxxis Ardent? The last time I saw Maxxis Ardent front and rear was on a Voodoo Bizango in about 2018. So when you've got this weird old parts mix, and so I'm like, well, maybe it's just a frame, it's the podium frame they had left. It's COVID overflow parts. They banged it together, called it the DC. Go on. It's like a kid that comes to you and he's clearly done his homework on the bus and he goes, I tried really hard. So it's just like, just don't do it again. Get out of my sight. Don't do it again. But actually that frame is completely bespoke to the bike. And the frame rides beautifully. It's got a lovely soft tail rear end to it. Not an actual physical soft tail, but really flowing rear end, stiff enough in the bottom bracket. But then you get to the geometry and it's really short and really steep. So there's nothing DC about the geometry either. And it just didn't work for me. I mean, what was interesting, I actually asked them if I could put drop bars on it. And they were like, no, we won't be selling it with drop bars, so you can't do that. And it's a very popular model in Spain, and people are loving it over there, which I guess maybe is true. Maybe Spanish version of DC does have lockout and does have flat bars, and all the, and Ardent tyres are still a big thing in, Spanish-speaking countries. They may well be. I'm not going to argue with that. But the funny thing is, then just before Christmas, Mondraker brought out a gravel bike that looks very, very, very similar to the Chrono DC. It isn't exactly the same, obviously different wheel and axle standards, but it looks very similar to the Chrono DC, and of course has drop bars on it. So, again, maybe I'm wrong. If you're watching this in Spain, somewhere sunny, or just want like an XC hardtail with a bit more grunt to it, then, get in the comments, slap me around the face, do an angry flamenco dance at me and tell me I'm wrong about the Mondraker Chrono DC being a bit of a being a big disappointment to me, to be honest. Then we have, stationary bike. I've done the whole confession video thing about me being on Zwift. I find it useful when either all my bikes are in bits or whatever and I just need to thrash my legs out, then I quite enjoy Zwift. And they sent me the Zwift bike and I totally get it. It's the modern flat, and I bet it looked great in the graphics studio where they seem to design it. I just think they should have moved it a bit into the engineering studio as well. I mean, things like the controllers work great. I've sent it back now and I really miss that. I had one button where you could press it. If you know anything about Zwift, you can give thumbs up ride-ons to everyone you're riding with in this virtual avatar world. And I was smashing that thing all the time, because obviously, clearly, but this being what I do for a living, I'm very, very needy. And I like to go, oh, well done, everybody, hoping they'll go, well done back. And to be honest, they didn't, but at least I got to press that button and drop what they call a ride-on bomb. Again, it's kind of like a gratitude terrorist through all my Zwift rides. But I just think it's, it looks the part, it's easily adjustable. Well, it was easily adjustable once I greased it. Before I greased the seat post, you couldn't bloody adjust it at all. I think the fact they've used steel makes it far heavier than it needs to be. It's a bit wobbly. If you're out of the saddle sprinting, I don't know why. Considering the turbo trainer you get with it uses a belt drive, I don't know why they didn't use a belt drive, because instead you get basically a single speed chain on it running around a roller. So it's like riding, and I mean, it's literally an orange roller as well. So it's like being on a downhill bike from about 2010 with a MRP roller on it. So why that wasn't a belt drive where you wouldn't get it greasy or dirty or oily in its other pristine, immaculate white Zwift bike environment, I don't know why they didn't use a belt drive. And also just little things like they could have made the seat post symmetrical rather than asymmetrical, because I mean it's a block of aluminium about that big, and you're not going anywhere, so it doesn't need to be bloody aero, does it? So if they could have made that and switched it round, then that would have meant you could have changed the seat angles between, because more and more bikes, not just triathletes, are like a forward seat angle now. We got Merida's trail bike has a 79-degree seat angle, and also it would have made the sizing. Then they go on about it being really universal in sizing, but if they dropped the top tube and made the made the seat post switchable, then that would have been a lot better. But probably most of you don't care about this because you're not in the market for a Zwift bike. So let's crack on to Pinarello Dogma. Now here's an interesting one. How do you criticise the bike that won the Olympics? And to be fair, I mean, Pinarello were very upfront. They said they hadn't made, when we went to the launch, they were like, these are the first bikes we've made in a size that isn't just for Tom Pidcock and Pauline and Ferrand Prévot. So it was the first time they'd made a medium or large size bike. And I mean, you can't argue that Tom and Pauline absolutely fly on the damn things. And they're very stiff, and if that's the geometry they want, then happy days. I mean, for me, I think it was a 490 mil reach with then a minus 19. It was mad. The stem light was 90 degrees off. It was like way down there. So the bike felt like it was about as long as a pole enduro bike, but they'd stuck the grips on top of the fork crown. Terrifying, genuinely terrifying. I was more scared riding that bike in Garda at the launch down some of the rocky descents than I was when I remember doing on Thomas Frischneck's Scott Strike Zero with Ritchie V brakes and Ritchie Speed Max tyres and the original SIDs, the grey ones with the fill at the top and the bottom on the rear shock and the light blue front it must have been year 2000. Literally, I mean, I remember abseiling down those rocks on Frisch's bike, but I think it can't be as bad as that, but frankly, it was absolutely terrifying. But the biggest beef about that, I mean, taking away all of that thing about the geometry, it's a very stiff bike. It clearly goes like the absolute clappers if you like the shape of it. So let's park that. But the suspension didn't work. Now again, Tom and Pauline obviously runs bespoke Suntour suspension on it with a custom tune, and I imagine it's stiff, but I presume they at least get full travel. The Fox kit that was on the bike, not a chance. We were running like 30-35% sag and nearly smashing the rims in half, trying to get it full travel. We were getting tops 60% the stroke out of it. So just a fundamental issue with the suspension setup. And what was really funny, it was a good crowd we had there. There's about sort of 15, 20 of let's just say, very experienced, mostly experienced journalists. And it was the first time I've ever been to a press launch where they went round the room and said, so, what do you think of the bike after we'd just ridden it? With the designers there. And also, interestingly, Kurt, who's Tom Pidcock's coach, who, although he'd only ridden the bike twice, including the press ride that we'd just done, seemed very, very involved and very opinionated about the bike, which was quite funny. And we all went, well, the suspension. We were... Because it's an awkward situation. You literally got Mr. Pinarello himself. He drove up special. And all the design team there chatting to you. And you're going, Tim, no. Everyone was sort of hedging around the geometry and stuff like that. And then everybody said, yeah, the suspension definitely needs work. And the funniest thing was that Kurt then got up and said, well, I mean, clearly you guys don't know how to set up suspension. Which, without being we probably had about... Well, there's 20 people in there with an average of 10 to 15 years experience testing mountain bikes. I think we know how to set up suspension, Kurt. You're a cyclocross and roadie expert. You've ridden a full suspension mountain bike. Well, this one twice. I think we can take our opinion over yours on that one. But, you know, you crack on, love. You crack on, and hopefully they'll produce a version which has a more sorted suspension. You can get it with RockShox. It might work better with RockShox on it. I think you can anyway. Maybe not. Anyway, check the specs. And it might be a situation like when the Canyon Lux Trail came out, where it was bloody awful with, let me get this right, yeah, that was bloody awful with RockShox on it, but then the Fox bikes apparently rode fine. So, I mean, again, at the end of the day, you could probably get around it with shock tuning, but there's definitely something in the way the kinematic is. I mean, presumably it's like insanely progressive, is the problem, which makes it very hard to get full travel. So, I've probably spent way too long on a bike that costs £12,000, and very few people will actually buy. Although interesting, what was the feedback I got on that video was very, very binary. It was just like, oh my God, what have they done? How does anyone ride a bike like that? And then people going, your job is amazing. You have the best job in the world. This is my absolute dream bike. And you're like going, did you not really listen to the review? Because it's called the Dogma, but in terms of suspension, I'd call it the Pinarello Dog at the moment. Oh, and the hardtail, didn't ride that. But I do know another tester who managed to crash it during a photo shoot, and it has a little stop in the headset that stops the fork spinning round too far because there's not enough clearance for the fork crown on the down tube. That's the theory anyway. Apparently it doesn't work that well, so if you do crash it hard and the fork does switch around, it'll rip the throat out of the bike. So no names, no pack drill, but just be aware that it can tear its own throat out. So it's quite an angry dog as well, not just a suspension dog. Racing. Oh, what was I going to say about racing? We've moaned about it a lot, haven't we, this year? I mean, talking about kind of the death of enduro since it was changed from EWS to EDR, which I don't think anybody really understands. I thought it was, well, EDM is electronic dance music. I don't really know what enduro discipline racing, I don't know. All I know is it seems to be basically extinct for next year. That seems to be the vibe coming out of it. I'm sure Rick will come onto my threads, Instagram, message in and go, oh, I don't think you're right there, but I don't want to talk about it on the internet. Rick McLaughlin, hi. And Chris Ball won't say anything to me because he doesn't seem to give interviews. But I think we can agree that enduro's in a bit of a bad place. Loads of teams pulling out. Not quite as bad as marathon, because I think EDR, if I'm right, I think enduro's still getting some coverage. Marathon World Cup, completely gone. No coverage at all. That's done. Not even sure there are any races outside of the World Championships. I don't think there are. I don't think there are any more World Cup marathons outside the races, which seems crazy as that compared to the few hundred people who do downhill, well, maybe a few thousand top end. There are literally, if you go to Germany or Spain or Italy, literally around the year, if it's not, even if it is snowing, there are tens of thousands of people, sometimes just doing tens of thousands, doing one event at once when it comes to marathon mountain biking. It's huge. And yet UCI, Discovery, I don't really know where the responsibility stands at the moment, just slap the whole thing off. No, don't want it anymore. But then I can and then obviously there's a lot of upheaval in downhill, less people riding, teams, it's much more expensive to be a team and everything like that. And that goes against the sort of grassroots, have a go hero ethos that's been, super important for teams like the Union and others, frameworks, people like that, who had a superb season, punching well above their weight on the scene and getting great results. And that's all part of that kind of, underdog. It's the reason why people who've been in the game of watching DH, I've never raced it, but I did. I used to race it in the early 90s when you just took your bar ends off and let your tyres down a bit. But apart from that, that's kind of, it's been a big change from that. It's going to be an even bigger change going forwards. But then if you look at the stats they've got from it, then more people have watched downhill, even though everybody who was into downhill previously has been bitching about it. Far more people overall have watched it. And at the end of the day, that's what Disco and Warner Brothers are trying to do. They're trying to make more people watch it. And that's working. And I think they're going to just keep pushing in that direction. So, maybe that will support bigger budgets, and overall the sport will grow, and that will be a good thing. And I think their recent announcement of like a I can't remember what they're calling, Continental Series, or is it a second tier series that equates to the Continental Road Series, just makes sense. You know, it works on the road. Everyone's like, oh, you can't have a smaller race series, and, you know, it's not going to work. People aren't going to get opportunities. How a team's going to get sponsorship? But it's been working on the road side for years, this double tier level. And, you know, if you're a Conti team and you get invited to a big race as a wild card, like Tour de France, Tour de Spain, whatever, suddenly you just go to your sponsors and go, we've got this massive opportunity. You're going to get loads more coverage. Can you throw us a bit more money? Bingo. And that, you know, it's like being relegated. It's like leagues in football and baseball, basketball, all these other things that have leagues. It's just the standard model. So I don't know quite why we're all getting our not quite skin suits, just very tight racing outfits in a bunch about that. So there you go. Racing. I don't know. Yes, it's changing, but maybe in some ways it's for the better, because we've definitely seen the coverage getting better, no doubt about it. The coverage on the more recent World Cups has been absolutely outstanding, and thanks to the races themselves, the racing has been absolutely brilliant as well. So, you know, from XC right through to DH, great. I've watched them all and bloody loved it. So, and again, I know other people involved in it. Some of them you can go on you can go on Ride Companion or on Downtime and see people quite rightly getting vexed about the whole situation and the lack of communication and things like that. And, you know, people that, you know, it's all been very last minute, I think, for the past 2 seasons, but then it's a huge thing to take on. You know, mountain bikers are notoriously hard to cat herd into some kind of organisation, and that's certainly the case when it comes to DH and racing, I think. So, trying to commoditize it on a big screen scale, which is what Warner Brothers and Disco are doing, is obviously hard. And yeah, so I guess we'll see. We'll see what happens. Right, from the huge multi-million-pound industry that is mountain bike racing and pros and cons of that, I give you the disappointing news that Hope don't seem to have sorted out their cleat bolts. They said they had. But I've just had a mate who's bought a bunch of pedals. The cleats came loose on them because the heads are too shallow on them. You can't tighten them up. Sometimes the bolts themselves just split. And he nearly offed his dog in a crash. I put the post up a couple of years ago where I basically detonated my ankle because my cleat slipped rather than coming out. And it's crap. It's crap. They're really, really good pedals. The Union Clipless pedals, excellent pedals. Clips themselves work fine. Stainless steel, made in-house, in Hope. All great. But they buy in some bolts. The bolts are crap. And yet they don't seem to have been done anything about it. And that's a big shame. Because Hope have got this amazing reputation for customer service. And yet they're currently literally risking people's ankles and safety for the 2 smallest components on their pedals. So that's a bit of a disappointment. Could do better on that one, Hope. USE Vibe Stem, still ongoing. I'm still using it. It hasn't snapped again. It came loose the second time, snapped the first time. USE are now saying, for the first time, wasn't mentioned previously, and I've not had any, I asked to see it, wasn't mentioned previously, that this is now a prototype stem I was riding. But, you know, again, apparently I'm the only one who's had this issue. It's a bolt they've used since the USE sub suspension fork, which puts it back to, I think the first time I saw one of them was Newnham Park in about 1998. But I'd argue that maybe they should get a new bolt, unless they accidentally ordered 1 million rather than 100 at some point. They just need to make products to still use that anodized bolt up. But I mean, to be honest, even if it was just black, that would make the stem look neater. But like I say, Dave Arthur apparently loves it. Cycling Weekly, I think, and Off-Road CC had a fine time on it. So maybe it's just me who snaps those suspension stems in half. But I think in general, suspension stems, I'm not convinced anyway. If you ride on the tops and on the hoods tops, they're fine because they actually still work. Riding the drops, which seems to be the obvious place to put your hands into downhill, especially if you're running flared bars, they don't actually work. You're literally working against them. You're pushing the stem up. and forwards when it wants to go down and backwards. So not convinced on suspension stems. But if they work for you, again, crack on. The whole point of this is you've taught me into doing this. Don't assume that everything I'm saying is right. You know, we might have the People's United front of suspension stem fans all mob me in the comments. It'd be like when I posted the Trek video of me and Freya going bike packing and all the people who are angry about Lidl and their chickens got involved. It might be like that with suspension stems. Who knows? So let's go on to DWR, durable water repellency. And again, God, if only I'd thought this could have been a really neat segue about ecological things. Because kind of the same people who are, I mean, again, don't want to get involved. I don't know anything about the whole whole little chicken thing. So I'm not going to comment on that. But there's no doubt that PFCs, forever chemicals, whatever you want to call them, carbon, C14 treatments for coats are a very bad thing because they don't dissolve. They get in the food chain, they get in our gut, they're just everywhere and they're kind of eternal, and that's a very bad thing for the environment. However, they were very, very good at keeping water out of coats, and since then, nobody has made a waterproof with a durable water repellency layer that actually works, because they're using water-soluble chemicals, essentially. It's a bit of a chocolate teapot situation. You're trying to stop water getting into a coat with a coating that dissolves. Go figure. The good news is I will be hopefully doing some secret squirrel testing shortly through, and then for the rest of the year, the rest of next year, on the new Gore, completely eco-friendly, Greta Thunberg approved non-carbon DWR coating they're bringing out. So hopefully we're going to have something that the dolphins and the seals will be applauding, that'll still mean that we can go out in a coat that won't get soggy. Until then, just wear a fleece or a soft shell, or just keep your old waterproof that still has a DWR coating that's toxic but works. Just don't buy a new one at the moment. It's really not worth it. Which is particularly bad for whales. There you go. There's a segue attempt. I could do it both ways, actually, couldn't I? I could do DWR coatings that are toxic are bad for whales, because they are. They make them sad. If you ever wondered what a sad whale sounds like. Also sounds like what my wife and her sister sound like talking to their dad, because they're all from Yorkshire. That's a similar whale song thing. Crikey. Is anyone still out there? I do apologise. If you managed it this far, dear Lord, I'm sorry. This has really gone sideways. But yeah, Wales, it's a bit sad, isn't it? It's a bit sad. I was, the whole trail centre thing is what I'm talking about. I was involved in Wales. I was the copywriter and editor for mbwales.com when it first started out in 1999, 2000. When they were first, Cody Brennan was the great new hope. I was one of the first people lucky enough to ride Cody Brennan. When I was on NBR, we were meant to be going to the Falklands. The flight was full because some people were coming back from a funeral. So we were there in Brize Norton in the middle of the night, about to get on a plane. And then Brant, the editor, went, "Oh, bloody hell. Right, we can't do anything else. We've got a load of bikes. We're in a transit van. There's this mad bloke in Wales who says he's built a trail. He's a forestry ranger. Let's go and see that." And that was literally, we literally were riding it the day after he'd finished building the Red Bull. So I've kind of been involved in Wales since the very, very start. And it's just sad to see that NRW, for whatever reason, there's a very, very long history of underfunding, or just complete lack of funding in terms of maintenance. And also mountain biking's changed. You can't deny that when Rowan Sorrell put the first big berms and jumps in at the bottom of White's Level and Athlone, you suddenly just got a whole new group of people turning up and literally just sessioning that bottom half a kilometre, not bothering with the other 50-kilometre trails. And that's what grew into Bike Park Wales, Dovey, all the other ones that you can, Revs, all the ones Fly Up, all the ones that you can think of that I can't because I don't really go there. And it's, it's obvious that mountain biking has changed. And, you go to, I rode through Cody Brennan this year as part of the Trouseri, just did it with my mates. And you're riding along backs of it. And it's like those disused railway lines you get where it's all just grass growing through it. And the main trail's still used, still really popular. When you get back to the centre, great. Loads of people there, kids, families, all the people you want to encourage to be mountain biking are there. Joe's doing a great job at Summit Cycles, or Bikes Brennan, as it's called when you're at Cody Brennan, hiring out e-bikes, been there bike testing with Specialised, done bike tests there myself with Trek. And, it's a superb resource. These all-weather trails, this sense of wilderness, the history, the gravel trails they put in there, all fantastic things. But the fact that when you get back to the calf, even if you do get to the calf, it wasn't great. And half the time it's shut. And now it's definitely going to be shut for a while at least. It's just a shame that mountain biking can be such a positive in an area. And it was initially when those trail centres opened. It was like, wow, Cody Brennan is a huge success. That's why you got so many different centres opening up across Wales. And of course, the whole Scottish Seven Stains, which led to Glentress, which led to Peebles, Innerleith, and, where it's now, basically a mountain bike mecca and literal centre of excellence with a lot of government support, is kind of due to what happened in Wales. So it's sad to see it dying. So that's sad. That is sad. And also all the stuff that's happened in Scotland as well. This should have been included in the racing thing. The death of Enduro, Tweed Valley, all that kind of thing, Naughty Northumbrian, all these different events that have just suddenly gone, ugh. They're not getting enough people through, they're not getting enough money through, they're not getting the support from the industry through, or the official backing of people to carry on. And that leads me to the last point. I think the saddest thing about 2024 is it's brought home what a monumental balls up the bike industry made of the whole COVID thing. It looked daft enough in 2022, 2023, when I was like, oh, there's a lot of stuff still hanging about. The fact that there is so much discounting, so much overstock still left, the whole thing about survive until 25. It's the 31st of January when I'm filming this. It's very clear that 2026 isn't going to be much different. There are still huge amounts of surplus kit, surplus bikes swilling about. The second-hand market, as a result, absolutely destroyed. Retail prices on bikes, absolutely destroyed. Because why would you bother paying retail when you can get a bike? It's like you see Boardman and Caliber and people and Voodoo introducing really good bikes for the money, working really, really hard with vendors, giving people the opportunity to buy a really well sorted bike for like 1,500 quid or something like that. But at the moment, you can buy like a Trek with SIDS and XT for 1,600 quid, top fuel or a fuel. Or you can buy a GT for $2,000 with a carbon frame and GX. So it's just, there's just all this dead weight crushing down on if we're going to use a growing analogy, there's these shoots of kind of progress trying to push through. But at the moment, there's just this huge mulch of oversupply. Whether it's Specialised suddenly charitably giving helmets away, or just, and brands like Kona nearly dying, and Rocky Mountain sound like they're in trouble. GT definitely sound that they're in trouble, and they are not going to be the last ones. And that just impacts everybody. The good news is, this is just me moaning, to be honest. There's never been a harder time to get reasonably paid for the work I do. I literally get paid half. If I'm lucky, I get paid if I'm lucky, I get paid half of what I did when I started in 1996 day rate. And that's actual half. That's not accounting for the rate of inflation. My word rate now is literally half, with knocking on 30 years of experience and hopefully a bit more guile and context as a writer and a bit more skill. For a start, I can now use more than 2 fingers when I type, which I couldn't back then. I'm getting paid half. And, when I started doing YouTube, I used to get paid for all the videos I did. Brands would pay me £1,000 for a bike video. It was brilliant. It was the same as I used to get for 2 group tests. I was like, that was the golden era. And then, unfortunately, because of that, the magazines I was still working for got a grump on and said, we're not doing any videos on bikes that you're testing for us because that's conflict of interest. And you probably don't care. Anyway, it's shit. It's shit for athletes who aren't getting sponsored. You can see that. I mean, look at the decimation in the teams going forwards into next year. Again, that's a racing thing. There's very little advertising in the magazines, so they're getting more desperate and clickbaity. There's just, there's much less investment in just kind of the fun stuff in the industry, really. Idiots like me. We're finding it harder to find marketing spend and stuff like that. So huge thanks to the guys who do support me. Huge thanks. That is not given in any way. So, pay attention to the people who are supporting me, and if you can help them by buying stuff from them. I only team up with people I genuinely trust and really, really rate the products that they make. So you're in safe hands if you go with my supporters, but huge thanks to those guys, and huge thanks to all of you on Patreon, or if you're just giving a super thanks. That's a new thing that started happening on YouTube. So there's a whole ton of positives. That's the good thing. There will be things I'm really looking forward to 2025. There's a huge amount of positives. The growth in kind of trail advocacy, huge. The recent thing about more taking off the deadline on getting trails ratified. Again, huge. There's some really, really positive tech coming through, and hopefully we will see finally all that dead inventory that's being shat out will start to thin out, and it'll get back to a more stable footing. But the industry really did screw up. I mean, and there's no other. I mean, some brands just got unlucky. They didn't overorder, but they got swamped by brands who did. I know there's a lot of small brands who that happened to. But overall, it's just greed. I've seen some insane stats, like there's enough liner shorts. This was a couple of years ago, I think, but I don't think that many people have bought liner shorts. There's enough liner shorts already made to keep people's asses happy for 25 years. And I go into distributors now where you go in and they used to be like, if they'd had a delivery that day, there'd just be a couple of spare frames, like an extra small or an extra large, hung on the racks. And all the other bikes and frames would just be straight out the door to distribute to shops who are waiting for them. Now you go in there, you're like squeezing through like it's a bloody submarine drama. There's that little space, there's that many bikes wrapped up. And that's not one brand, that's many, many brands. And that's just what we're seeing landed here. You could go to the continental warehouses or even back out to the Far East, to Taiwan. And there's still just a huge amount of bikes racked up in those warehouses. And what were they thinking? Man, how many months was it? It was only literally 2 or 3 months that it went crazy in terms of bike demand. Maybe 6 months tops. What the were people thinking when they were going, oh, we need to order this many, we need to order this many. And then the venture capitalists get involved and they go, oh, well, if you're already ordering that many, you aren't really being ambitious enough. We're going to invest with this brand who says they're going to order that many. So they go, oh, no, well, we'll order 3 times as many. It's just like, what were you thinking? All the brand, while it's terrible that a lot of people I know have lost their jobs and they weren't the people making that decisions, isn't that always the way? It's never the people who are working hard and really passionate about stuff who make those dumb decisions, because they've probably been in the industry long enough to know it was stupid. It's all these vulture capitalists and, CEOs from other places and financial officers and basically people trying to make a quick buck and milk the cow without worrying about whether it falls over dead or its others peel off. And it's those. They're the ones who've killed it. They're the ones who've created this state in the industry. So if I had one wish for 2025, I guess it's getting rid of those people, and that'll only happen when the industry thins down a bit, because it's going to happen, and that might include me. Let's be honest. I've the website I did most of my work for this year, Bike Perfect. That should be on the sad list. The loss of Bike Perfect. I worked for that. Had a great time. Been working there for 5 years. Cracking little site. I think it was a mistake that was primarily marketed towards Google and SEO rather than real people. We didn't really have a marketing team. We didn't have any advertising. No one really knew we existed. And so perhaps inevitably, even though the numbers were good, we got shelved because we were running in parallel with NBR. So, and that's what happens, Bike Perfect gets shelved. MBR gets a bit more investment, and hopefully MBR can survive, because I'm working for them now and they're doing some great things. You know, Al and Danny and Jamie, that crew, you know, they're trying to be really procreative. They're on the TikToks. You know, AI Muldoon is this new cyberbot they've invented, and he's doing brilliant work. So, you know, that's what's got to happen. The industry's got to thin down until just the people who are doing the good stuff and that people like and support crack on. And again, I guess that's racing as well. But what I think we might see, and what I kind of like to see, if I'm honest, is a split between kind of the mass content chasers, you know, all the clickbait sites and all the, you know, dopamine hit headlines and everything that Google and stuff are telling you desperately to put on your articles. Because I was getting sick of that, to be honest, by the end of Bike Perfect. And, you know, we all were. You know, if you've been writing for 25 years, trying to be as honest and like make interesting headlines, just go for the lowest common denominator or hitting every keyword you needed to. It's no way to write. It just feels dirty, to be honest. But this has gone on long enough, I think. You know, mountain biking is great. It's definitely in a period of change. I think it needs to change. If all the other people who want to go off and do the clickbait thing and the flashy thumbnails and, you know, talk about the most travel or just trash brands for the sake of trashing brands. I mean, this hasn't been a great list. I haven't slaughtered anyone really, have I? I've just called out things because that's the truth. You know, I could go, well, the Bronson, I didn't like the way it pedalled. I didn't like the low-speed compression tune on the Caliber Boss Nut. But then the Bronson is a pink bike biker. The Caliber Boss Nut is a fantastic all-round bike. And I am literally about 10 mattresses deep feeling the pee that's pissing me off in the princess analogy here. And I don't think there's much value in that for people. I mean, some people make a riot out of him. Hambini does great, and he's slagging everything off. And I certainly, you know, if I've got a genuine problem with something, I'm not going to be quiet about it. Hence this list. And hence why my reviews, although I do get carried away when I'm chatting live, when I'm riding, undoubtedly, riding's bloody brilliant. It gets me G'd up. I'll often maybe take a positive spin on stuff. Sorry about that. Mea culpa. Take me officer. I'm guilty. But at the end of the day, mountain biking is fun. Bikes are fun. And we are lucky enough, although the industry's in a bit of a state, at the end of the day, we're getting brilliant bikes now, dirt cheap. Well, comparatively dirt cheap. They're actually just kind of corrected to what they should, really, because there was too much. That's what's happened. There's too much of everything. There was too many races, too many brands, too many bikes, too many media outlets, websites, Instagrammers, influencers, all of it. There was too much. It's unsupportable. It's all having a bit of a collapse. What I'll be saying then next year, whether I'll still be talking to you on a GoPro, who knows? But right now, that's my shit list. But at the end of the day, mountain biking, gravel biking, off-road riding, whatever you want to call it, watch that video if you haven't, with me and Adrian from Pace and Dom from North York Moors, because I thought that was a really interesting one. And it's got sun in it, which is quite rare at this time of the year. But yeah, there's been some crap stuff in 2024. It's been a year where a lot of us have just kind of struggled through. But we're still here, aren't we? We're still here. And what's been really great, like properly touched me, from some of these top 10 videos, the people who've just gone, just thanks for rattling on. I hate to think how long this has gone on. I'm surprised the camera's still running, to be honest. But I love chatting to you lot about bikes. And at the end of the day, if I can find a way to still make that work and you can find a way to enjoy whatever bike you've got, because you don't need all this. I mean, yeah, my whole shtick is talking about the latest stuff and saying why it's great or why it's not great. But the bottom line is you don't bloody need it. You don't. Whatever bike you've got now, even if the gears don't change, ride it as a single speed. As long as the brakes work and the tyres are pumped up and nothing's going to snap off and hurt you, just go out and ride it. Have fun. Just bloody have fun, and then we'll all have a really good 2025. So, thanks for bearing with me with the shit list. This one went completely off the rails. I don't think any of you will be surprised. I'll be surprised if any of you are still watching. But for now, just in case, I've been Guy Kestervan on Guy Kes TV, talking the hind legs of Shrek and his Christmas donkey about the things that have upset me, disappointed me, or just made me a bit thoughtful in 2024. So, see you for next year, and see you for things I'm really excited about next year video coming shortly.